Okay, I call the meeting to order. This is Standing Committee on Health. I am Danny McGillivray, MLA for Pictou Centre and Chair of the committee. Today's meeting is focused on addressing items of committee business. Please remember to set your phones to silent. Now I ask committee members to introduce themselves for the record by saying their name and constituency, please.
Brian Wong, MLA, Waverley, Fall River, Beaverbank.
Susan Corkin-Grieg, MLA for Lunenburg.
Ryan Robichaud, MLA for Clare.
Nick Hilton, MLA for Yarmouth.
Ian Rankin, Timberley Prospect.
Rod Wilson, Halifax, Armdale.
Lisa LaChance, Halifax, Little Sable Island.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. And for the purpose of hand, I also recognize the presence of Chief Legislative Counsel Gordon Hebb and Legislative Committee Clerk Robin Dan. Let's get into some committee business. Brotherhood and sisterhood programs. Nova Scotia Health was a requested witness. The Department of Health and Wellness a response for negotiating the funding for these programs. Nova Scotia Health feels they would be a more appropriate witness. Members were sent the discussion from the correspondence from Nova Scotia Health. Is there any discussion on this issue? MLA LaChance.
I guess, I think when we first discussed this too, I think these were topics that came from the government caucus. My understanding is that these are largely implemented through community partners. And so at the time of when we discussed this, we suggested that, in fact, the witnesses include some of the community partners who are implementing these programs. I would say that that's probably even more the case if we're having the funder come in who negotiates and funds the programs. Like, we're not going to hear about what's actually happening in community with the current witness list. And so I guess I would ask again, ideally, we could come back at a future time with suggested community partners. I don't have a list in my head of who those partners are, but I just think right now the setup for these topics is not fulsome enough.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else would like to speak on it? MLA Wilson.
Echo my colleagues' comments. And one of the things that strikes often in the legislature when we ask questions of programs, the Minister of Health defers to the operator, as they've been called, which is Nova Scotia Health. So it's kind of contradictory for a program whose oversight is the operator to then ask for the Department of Health. So to echo MLA LaChance, but I think that the operator who oversees the programs and other witnesses are more appropriate than the Department of Health, as indicated by the Minister on several occasions.
Okay, thank you. MLA Hilton.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate my colleagues' comments. For now, though, we will move that on the topic of Brotherhood and Sisterhood program, the witness list be amended to include representatives from Department of Health and Wellness, along with Nova Scotia Health.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for that? Need a seconder? Okay, thank you. That's from my old mayor days. MLA LaChance.
I think I just really want to point out that we understand there's sort of two issues at hand, and I'm not sure if we're talking about all of them. But there, on one hand, the government caucus doesn't seem to want to hear from community in terms of the programs that are being funded and rolled out. On the other hand, we've heard that that Nova Scotia Health and the leadership at the Department of Health and Wellness also don't want to come as frequently. And so, I would just suggest that is not a coherent stance. So we have a committee that meets twice a month. And what we're suggesting is the best way to have the most fulsome discussion is to include community, recognizing that there's this whole other discussion about leadership of two other organizations who, I assume for reasons of workload, I'm not sure, don't feel like they can make it to committee as frequently. So it's really inconsistent. It doesn't make any sense. And I will say that I suspect that we're going to have a really, I can't imagine that we're going to have a very particularly fulsome discussion of the Brotherhood and Sisterhood programs without having community voices at the table.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 2, Community Wellness Framework. The Office of Addictions and Mental Health Deputy Minister requests the presence of the following witnesses: the Canadian Mental Health Association, Margaret Murray, Co-Executive Director, Building Bridges Manager; Nova Scotia Hospice Palliative Care Association, Tim Guest, Executive Director; and Mental Health Foundation, Nova Scotia, Star Cunningham, President and CAO. Is there any discussion on this? MLA LaChance?
So I think this is a great discussion, I think, or a great example, really, of, again, where government's providing the policy framework, possibly some funding, but they recognize that the organizations that are actually doing the work, who can tell us the stories of what's happening in community, who can tell us the impacts on Nova Scotians, are being recommended to come with them. And so, we're completely supportive of this. I just want to point out that, I think this is really, an example of what we were just discussing in terms of who can tell us best the story of what's happening in Nova Scotia. And I guess the other thing I would say too is that all of these frameworks, I'm not sure, were potentially or these discussion topics were from Government Caucus. And I guess just a plea to perhaps better vet and research topics before they're presented, so that we know that who is being presented as witnesses are in fact the right people, because what this is also leading to is a lot of delays. So for instance, we're not having a full meeting today because topics were approved with the wrong witnesses. We had to reconstitute to address that, and it doesn't make the committee as effective as it could be.
Thank you. Any further comments? MLA Hilton?
Sorry. So I'll move the suggested witnesses, Margaret Murray, Tim Guest, and Star Cunningham, be added to the witness list for the topic of Community Wellness Framework for the Standing Committee on Health.
Thank you, MLA Hilton. Is there any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you very much. So move on to letters from Deputy Ministers of Health and Wellness and the Office of Addictions and Mental Health. Members were sent correspondence received by the clerk from the Deputy Minister of Health and Wellness and the Office of Addictions and Mental Health regarding appearances before committee. A letter was also sent to Chief Clerk James Charlton. As was mentioned, he is out of province right now. What's the discussion on this one? Or just, would you like to defer till next election? Or till next meeting? So, you want me to read that?
Just you can recognize MLA Hilton and Hill. Yeah, just recognize
MLA Hilton?
No, do we need a motion to defer? Yeah, I'll make that a motion. Till James Charlton is available to discuss the topic. Next month? Perfect.
Okay.
Those in favor?
We've heard the motion. Any discussion on it? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you very much. Pardon me? Is there any other committee business that would like to be brought up at this point in time? Okay. The next meeting is December 9th, 2025, 1 to 3 p.m. Topic will be seniors and family pharmacare programs with a list of witnesses before us on the agenda, and we'll see everyone then. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice job.